For most of us, breathing hums along entirely in the background. We treat it as the automatic mechanical process keeping us alive, or at most, a basic physical tool to lower our heart rate when we feel stressed. But thousands of years ago, texts like the Prajna Upanishad documented a very different mechanism. They stated that the oscillating column of air in your lungs is the direct physical interface between the human body and universal cosmic bliss, a state they called Ananda. For centuries, modern science dismissed these ancient claims. The idea that simple respiration could alter consciousness was usually filed away as religious poetry, creative metaphors that had little to do with actual biology. That consensus broke in 2020. Using high-density EEG and fMRI scans, researchers sparked a quiet revolution in breath science, finally developing the tools to measure exactly what the early yogis were doing. The data revealed something startling. The ancient masters had compiled an exact biological operating manual for an internal technology that modern medicine is only just beginning to map. This diagram tracks the precise biological parameter under investigation, a 4.5-second inhale followed by a 4.5-second exhale. In clinical settings, this 1-to-1 ratio creates a perfectly symmetrical wave of respiration. Reaching and maintaining this exact frequency triggers a specific shift in the human nervous system. It pulls the act of breathing out of the brain's automatic survival circuits and turns it into a conscious, directional force. Maintaining this frequency systematically overrides the body's default stress response, forcing the nervous system to shift from external vigilance toward internal sensation. The chemical chain reaction starts at the base of the brain. As that deliberate column of air moves, it physically stimulates the retrotrapezoid nucleus, recently identified as the internal breathing pacemaker. The rhythmic movement of the diaphragm sends a direct signal to another region called the locus ceruleus, suppressing the production of norepinephrine. Norepinephrine dictates your baseline alertness and your baseline anxiety. As those levels drop, the persistent low-level mental static that clouds everyday human experience simply disappears. Clearing out this chemical noise is the absolute biological requirement for your nervous system to detect the deeper underlying state of physical bliss. This schematic of the vagus nerve shows its fibers vibrating in a coherent 0.1 Hz rhythm. Traveling upward, this pulse suppresses the brain's alarm system and dims the posterior cingulate, triggering high-frequency gamma bursts, the exact electrical signature of non-dual awareness. In this electrical state, Ananda ceases to be processed as an emotion. It registers physically as an overwhelming sensation of deep bodily satiety. While the brain fires in gamma, a synchronized physical reaction propagates through the fascia, the body's entire web of connective tissue. Every slow expansion of the diaphragm applies distinct mechanical micropressures across this net of fibers. Connective tissue is piezoelectric. As the breath stretches and compresses the fascia, that mechanical pressure instantly translates into a cascading bioelectric charge. Modern laboratories studying ultra-weak photon emissions have confirmed the result of this charge. During coherent breathing, the human body literally generates and emits microscopic particles of light. Researchers measured this exact biophoton activity and found that it clusters specifically in the 550 to 650 nanometer spectral window. This measurable wavelength aligns with what ancient text called Hridaya Akasha, a term that translates to the luminous space of the heart. This spectral overlap indicates that the ancient descriptions of internal luminosity align directly with the biophotonic activity we now measure in the lab. All of this biological evidence forces a reevaluation of what bliss actually is. Ananda operates completely independently of any external triggers or substances. It is the natural baseline state of your consciousness, revealing itself the moment the neurological friction between your internal mind and the external world is removed. At this level of coherence, the physical movement of air becomes the expression of consciousness deliberately choosing its own direction. You experience every exhalation as a miniature dissolution, a biological trigger dissolving reality to zero, and every deliberate inhalation becomes a conscious recreation of the world. Mastering this internal oscillation reverses how you experience life. You become an active participant in building your perception, fully free from the amnesia of everyday survival mode. Practitioners who sustain these cycles for long periods eventually report a specific psychological shift. The sensation of being an isolated individual controlling their own lungs disappears, replaced by the feeling that they are no longer the one doing the breathing. The Upanishads captured this collapse between the self and the cosmos in a single defining phrase: I am Atma Brahma. This very breathing self is the vastness. Breath serves as the biological threshold where your mind remembers it was never separate from the fabric of reality. When you cross that threshold, you find that the universe is, quite literally, breathing you.